hope if they can pick up him peeing. It's
I was kind of thinking that it's probably going to.
Yeah. I wonder when he has to leave. I'll ask him. Yeah. So, thanks for tuning in thus far. What do you think about this conversation, Robin?
I think it's going really well. We're touching on some pretty big topics. Obviously ones that are going to need to be visited over and over again to keep sorting them out.
Yeah, I mean, fuck. Well, even you and I are constantly hashing these sorts of things out.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, fucking, we name drop like Nietzsche and Jung and Peterson and stuff and other people. That random Dubadoo guy, he said, I can't remember his name. But it's like, these people are spending their lives on these fucking issues and writing about it. It's like, they probably weren't even done. They just fucking croaked one day. Like, Jung's Red Book, it ends mid-sentence. He didn't even finish it. That was his life's
amazing.
work. Yeah.
I feel like Pat will end that way.
Yeah. Because, like, these kinds of conversations, like, just... Like they're unending. People have been talking about these things since there's been fucking people.
It's the important macro questions, buddy. 100%. But yeah, it's like kind of getting back to a past point. I just hate how people do cherry pick the whole capitalism thing, though, and you know, and you're right about that because it's like on the concept of like you bearing the weight of like you having to define morals and stuff. You know, it's like. It's just crazy, you know, how crazy and whacked it can get. Yeah. And, like, how good it is here, you know, like, everybody fills a void here. If you just let the individual kind of develop themselves, like, it kind of naturally flows. Everybody's gonna kind of find their own way, just like that beer found its way on your shirt.
Yeah. This beer was just, I'm shockingly, this is one of my, I think it's just reprehensible of me, but I'm super bad at getting liquid into my mouth. I often just pour it all over myself. And I'm like, holy fuck, 24 years old, I can't even figure out how to get liquid into my mouth. I'd say like 60% of the time I spill some liquid on my face trying to... Anyways, sorry to interrupt you.
My goodness. But oh man, I got a little knocked off there.
Yeah.
What was I going on about?
You're going on about... people cherry-picking capitalism.
Cherry-pick capitalism. Hate it. Love it. Because you're free. And
well, it's like people just take a one-sided stance about something as complex as our society. It's like, it's so fucking... I don't think anyone can have a total understanding of our society. It's too huge and complicated. Like, we can kind of start... Like, we do have ideas about what it is, but it's in some sense beyond us. And I think that's why we all have to have these conversations, because... You know, you have a little piece of understanding about it, and so do you, and so do I, and so does everyone else, and we can talk and be like, what do you think it is? What do you think it is? Like, we're inside of this thing, and in some sense we've created it collectively over the millennia, and we don't even know what it is, really. It's like, it's a myriad of things.
The closest
Some are
that
bad,
I've found to any kind of... Not even, I won't say answers because that sounds really definitive and it's not like I found that, but the closest that I've come to understanding some of these things is by talking to old people.
Yeah.
Like,
oh my god,
I have a
the
friend
old
who's
people.
95 and she is like a wealth of information. She's from Northern Ireland. She went to war at 17 and like we've had many different times we're talking about, you know, like what was the world like for her and how has it changed, and like the whole concept of freedom is, in her opinion, it's like it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
There is no freedom anymore because, like, how can you, you know, short of using the bathroom, I mean, even still using the bathroom, like the chances of a microphone or something of a device picking up bits and pieces of your life, walking anywhere, you're going to be on camera. My uncle was telling me recently about how China now has software that recognizes your gait, so they don't even need to see your face anymore to recognize who you are, because they can identify you just by your walk.
And you know what? Did you hear of their like human Yelp system that they're doing there? Pretty much, it's like you get to rate how good of a citizen you are, and it's going to affect like credit scores and like if you can qualify for loans.
Oh my god, it's Black Mirror.
Like
Black Mirror.
It's some Black Mirror shit. It's like they love all the plenty of capitalism, but they kept like those mechanisms of like the totalitarian state intact for total control.
It's just like,
oh my god, man, where are we going?
Imagine what the world would have looked like almost like, you know, 100 years ago, 90 years ago, 80 years ago, and like what is it going to be for us by the time we are that age?
Someone who's like pushing 100, their life it's damn near spanned a fucking century. Like,
and they say
that's such valuable lived experience.
Whole library has burned every time an old person dies.
Yeah,
it's like an old saying.
Especially if there's someone who is competent and paying attention and trying to see their way through life with some sort of grace and trying to better themselves along the way. Because people have always done that, trying to read and write and craft who they are and fit into the world. Like, if someone like that reaches 100 and dies, just like in a nursing home with no family around or something, it happens too much of the time.
Yeah,
it's like fuck. It's like we're so enamored with youth, and I think that's part of the reason we see. Like, at least for me, I feel like I perceive a lot of just, like, immature, not grown-up, lost people in the world, and it's like, I don't know if the society we live in or the culture, at least in part lately, has been so enamored with responsibility-less, youthful, just freedom in that sense. It's like, without the discipline or without the, like, having to do some kind of chore or do something laborious that you would rather not do if you weren't, like, getting paid for it or something, for example. I don't know, I just feel like everyone's horrified of getting old and everyone's horrified of getting gray hair, and it's like, why? Like, you're aging like a fine wine or something, you know? It's like, you could become so much more than you are now. Like, it's like what we talked about earlier.
I think that's like, story. It's just like that whole fucking thing with, like, the state of mind of growing up in North America. It's like you are in that 1% of the world. It's like, all of those things are bad things and it's never going to happen to you, and like really on average it's like a lot of bad stuff will never happen to you here. It's just you can be pretty damn sure, man. Like,
people just fucking,
and it's great.
People don't even look when they cross the road, man. Like,
well, you know, it's like, you know,
crazy.
Even these younger people, it's like they think, like, I feel like it's younger people mainly. It's like they almost think like cars will like stop on a dime. If I walk out into like the middle of the road, this thing's gonna stop on a fucking dime for me. It's
Guess
like
what?
that's
that
not
doesn't happen.
Yeah, it's like, and
because
once
the person
again,
driving's also texting and like
and like once again, it's just like I feel like right now it's like everyone's just so fucking entitled and selfish. It's like, and to an extent, it's because of that like pampered upbringing, and I'm guilty of it. I'm sure everybody is, because like we grew up in the 1% of the world.
Yeah,
it's like you know, it's that lack of perspective and a lack of understanding, just like in general lack of like real compassion. Like I don't feel like people are having conversations like what's going on here anymore. It's like I'm going to try and just paint you into some kind of a corner, or I don't have to hear the other side, or I'm not going to do any kind of digging. And obviously social media algorithms have not helped in you like putting on blinders in terms of like your ideology or your belief system. And it's just a dangerous cocktail, man. I mean, like, fuck. Like my great granddad, you know, like he was fucking like he was beaten in public, you know, for like being an intellectual or a proletariat, some shit like that, like a landowning dude who was like well educated. And it's like that stuff will never happen here. And it's like, it's crazy how like a lot of that is happening now, almost in some weird, strange quasi manner. And like I said this once at a party, and it almost drew some jeers, and not really a party, it was a gathering of like some close friends. But I was saying like a lot of it right now is like it's pretty socialist, because it's like that's what happened to my great granddad. He was just like a group of his peers just decided that he's a capitalist pig, and they bet the shit out of him. They fucking made him pray on a fucking bed of nails, and then he died of exposure. And apparently, like there's a reason why my mother swam across that channel. Yeah. It's because, like, they would have saw that. It was public denouncing of, like, you know, people who aren't a part of the ideology. And, like, I think that's another thing, too. It's, like, you know, this weird entitled, like, society we have is, like, leaning towards ideologies because it fills all these voids. And it's, like, it's dangerous. And I don't think people know how much fire they're actually playing with these things.
Well, yeah, man. It's, like... First of all, it starts to kind of force all the alt-right people to come crawling up from the depths below. You know?
And you gave them exactly what they want. Yeah,
and it's like, it's bad. I got into a bit of a debate on Facebook. I've been doing that a lot. I think I need to stop, but I've been inviting them onto the podcast lately, and like none of the actual full-blown left-leaning SJWs will ever take me up on it, you know. They never, and this brings me to a Nietzsche quote that I took a picture of earlier. I'm going to repost it at some point, but it was something to the effect of like the greatest atrocity against the youth will be to render them being just he said it so good. He's so much better with words than
I'm
me.
looking it up.
But it was like the greatest thing you could do to harm the youth would be to teach them to hold contempt for ideas that oppose theirs, basically, and to force them to only like want to engage with people who agree with them constantly. And so like when I get into these Facebook debates, it's just I disagree with them on something, and immediately I'm a crazy right-wing circle-jerking Nazi of some sort. It's like, whoa, man, like, hear me out. I have a point to make. I have an argument.
Yeah.
And then it's nothing, they won't retort with anything of substance. It's always just these ad hominem, character insulting, you know, you're a racist, bigot, Nazi, blah, blah, blah. It's like, actually fucking engage my argument. Like, show me opposing points, and don't just call me a piece of shit. Here it is. The surest way to corrupt a youth is to instruct him to hold in higher esteem those who think alike than those who think differently.
Boom.
Yeah.
100%.
Way better with words than me.
100%.
But, yeah, so this brings me to I was on the way here the whole time. Sorry I've taken so long, but I basically made the comment that, you know, Marxism seems to kind of like, I think Marxism and Nazism are like sides of the same coin, right? They're both murderous. You could argue that Marxism is even more murderous based on the sheer body count compared to Nazism. The only advantage that Marxism has above being a Nazi is that you can kind of like hide under this like cloak of compassion and equality and all these sorts of things.
Yep.
But the only way to establish this kind of crazy socialist utopia that they're aiming for is to impose like absolute murderous tyranny on people. Because it's like, guess what? People differ in their productivity. People differ in their temperaments. People are different. And it's like, if you actually were able to pull off some sort of utopia, I think you made a similar point earlier, which was like, it would be like a fucking less than a week before someone burnt a building down just so something interesting would happen.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's fucked. Like, it's what shitty sense of entitlement. Like, fuck.
And then these people started arguing with me, and I'm using the term argue loosely because I hold argument in high esteem. I think argument is a beautiful thing. It's like you have a different side of the you hold a different position than me. Let's debate. Let's throw opposing ideas back and forth, and hopefully, if we're both sane and humble enough, you know, we can come out both. You know, oh shit, I never thought of it that way. You said that thing that kind of like put me into alignment a little bit more, of like filled this hole in my thinking, or showed me where I was being contradictory to myself or something, and then vice versa to them, hopefully, and then we might come away from it better and more informed. But instead, it's like people are just engaging to like prove that you are this like awful, evil caricature of who you actually are, and it's crazy, ideologically possessed, just fucking, you know, they're just building this crazy fire. It's like,
yeah,
where is it in? And so this guy was just taking me to task, saying that like he was saying that comment I made was complete garbage. And I was like, why? You know?
Yeah.
And so he's like, no. And then the argument always comes up that it wasn't true Marxism that got practiced in Maoist China and the Soviet Union and Cambodia and Cuba. It's
give
like
an example of what is the truth.
Once again, the entitlement just reeks in that whole comment, because it's like, no, I'm a much better, like, more tempered, more benevolent fucking dictator. Choose me. Like, fuck you, buddy. Like, fuck you. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Like, it pisses me off when, like, people even throw around the word Marxism or, like, socialism. Like, I believe in certain things, like, you know, a little bit of, like, social programs in a society isn't a bad thing. I'm not anti-healthcare system. I'm not anti, like, CPP, like Canadian Pension Program or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's just, like, if you think that, like, there's anything better, and, like, who the fuck are you to think that you can do better? Like, are you kidding me? Like, what arrogance? Like, this is an affront to me. Like, really? Yeah. Like, and it's just like that whole ignorance and like just this padded place that we grow up in. And it's like it's sheer ignorance. You don't know any better, and that's why you're spewing this fucking dribble. Like, what the fuck is this shit? I'm like, I'm angry at people like that when they're just like, that makes me so mad when they're just like, oh yeah, it's just not the right type. Right type? Is there a right type of Nazism? Like, what the fuck? Like, National Socialism? There's a right type of that? Like, fuck you.
Yeah. Nobody would ever try to make that case for Nazism.
Absolutely.
But people
not.
argue for Marxism all the time, and to me, they're both as horrifying. But Marxism scares me more